You know what's interesting? Most people go through their entire lives searching for the enemy outside themselves. They blame the economy, they blame their boss, they blame the government, they blame their spouse, they blame the weather if they can get away with it. And all the while, the real battle, the one that determines everything about their life, is happening right between their ears. Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. After years of watching people succeed and fail, after my own stumbles and victories, the greatest enemy you'll ever face looks back at you in the mirror every single morning. Here's what I mean. Inside every person, there's a war going on. It's been going on since you were old enough to make choices. On one side, you've got your disciplined self, the part of you that knows what needs to be done, that has dreams and ambitions, that wants to become something more. On the other side, you've got your undisciplined self, the part that wants to sleep in, that makes excuses, that chooses the easy path, that says maybe tomorrow, or I'll start Monday, or I'm just not that kind of person. And every single day, one of these two sides is winning battles. The question is, which side is winning more? I remember a moment in my own life when this truth hit me like a freight train. I was in my late 20s, broke, with nothing to show for all those years. My bank account was pitiful, my prospects were dim, and I was living with that gnawing feeling that life was passing me by. And I was doing what most people do in that situation. I was blaming everything and everyone. The company I worked for didn't pay enough. The opportunities weren't there. I didn't have the right connections. The economy was tough. I had this whole list of reasons why things weren't working out. And let me tell you, it was a pretty convincing list. I could have won an award for creative excuse making. But then someone said something to me that changed everything. They said, Jim, for things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. And in that moment, I realized something profound. The problem wasn't out there. The problem was in here. The battle I was losing wasn't against the world. It was against myself. Every time I chose to skip that book and watch television instead, I was losing a battle. Every time I said I'd start working on my goals tomorrow, I was surrendering territory to the enemy within. Every time I made an excuse instead of making progress, I was strengthening the very force that was destroying my life. See, most people never understand this. They go through life thinking that success is about finding the right opportunity, the right job, the right market, the right circumstances. And sure, those things matter. But here's what matters more. Before you can win any external battle, you've got to win the internal one. Before you can conquer the marketplace, you've got to conquer yourself. Before you can lead others, you've got to lead yourself. And that's where most people fail. Not because the world is too tough, but because they're at war with themselves and they don't even know it. Let me break down what this internal war looks like in practical terms. Every morning when that alarm goes off, there's a battle. Your disciplined self says, get up, you've got work to do, you've got dreams to chase, you've got a life to build. Your undisciplined self says, 5 more minutes won't hurt. You're tired, you deserve rest, you can start tomorrow. Right there, in that moment, before your feet even hit the floor, you're either winning or losing. And here's the thing that most people don't realize. That battle, that one simple moment, it sets the tone for your entire day. Win that first battle, and you've got momentum. Lose it, and you're already on the defensive. Or take another example. You've got a choice between spending your evening educating yourself or entertaining yourself. Your disciplined self knows that reading that book, taking that course, developing that skill, that's what's going to change your life. Your undisciplined self says you've worked hard, you deserve to relax, just veg out in front of the TV, you'll do the productive stuff later. And most people, they choose entertainment over education every single time. Then they wonder why their life doesn't change, why they're stuck, why they're not growing. It's because they're losing the battle inside. Here's another front in this internal war. Promises to yourself. Think about how many times you've made a promise to yourself and then broken it. I'm going to start working out. I'm going to save money this month. I'm going to read more. I'm going to work on that project. I'm going to change my eating habits. And then what happens? You break that promise. Maybe not the first day, maybe not the first week, but eventually you break it. And every time you break a promise to yourself, you know what you're doing? You're teaching yourself that you can't be trusted. You're reinforcing the idea that you're not reliable, that your word doesn't mean anything even when you give it to yourself. Think about what that does to a person over time. If you can't trust yourself to keep simple promises to yourself, how can you have confidence in anything you try to do? How can you believe in your ability to change, to grow, to achieve something significant? You can't. That's why so many people have given up on their dreams. It's not that the dreams were too big. It's that they lost the war inside so many times that they stopped believing they could win. Now, let me tell you about the specific enemies you're fighting in this internal war. The first one is procrastination. This enemy is sneaky because it doesn't tell you no, it just tells you later. It says, that's a great idea, you should definitely do that, just not right now. And not right now becomes tomorrow, which becomes next week, which becomes next month, which becomes next year, which becomes never. Procrastination is the enemy that kills more dreams than failure ever will because it prevents you from even trying. Then there's self-doubt. This enemy whispers in your ear that you're not good enough, smart enough, talented enough, connected enough, whatever enough. It tells you that success is for other people, people who have advantages you don't have. It convinces you that you should play it safe, stay small, not take risks, because you're probably going to fail anyway. Self-doubt is the enemy that keeps you locked in a life that's smaller than the one you're capable of living. And then there's the excuse maker. Oh, this is a clever enemy. This one gives you permission to fail before you even start. It builds you a fortress of reasons why you can't, why it won't work, why it's not the right time, why the odds are against you. And the excuses it gives you, they sound so reasonable. They're logical. They make sense. That's what makes them so dangerous. Because an excuse, no matter how reasonable it sounds, won't change your life. Action changes your life. Results change your life. But excuses, they just keep you exactly where you are. Here's what you need to understand. This war inside you, it's not going to end. As long as you're alive, as long as you're making choices, there's going to be this tension between who you are and who you could become, between what's easy and what's necessary, between comfort and growth. The question isn't whether you'll face this battle. The question is whether you'll fight it consciously or let it happen to you unconsciously. Most people lose this war by default. They don't actively choose to be undisciplined, lazy, or mediocre. They just don't actively choose to be anything else. They drift. They go with the flow. They take the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance, let me tell you, it leads downhill. It leads to a life of regret, of wondering what could have been, of looking back and wishing you'd fought harder for the person you knew you could become. But here's the good news. You can win this war. Not by winning it once in some dramatic moment, but by winning it day by day, battle by battle, choice by choice. See, a lot of people think that transformation is this big dramatic event. They're waiting for some moment when everything clicks and suddenly they become a different person. That's not how it works. Transformation is small. Transformation is daily. Transformation is in the mundane choices that nobody sees, nobody applauds, nobody even knows about. It's in getting up when you said you would. It's in doing the work when you don't feel like it. It's in keeping your word to yourself when it would be easy to break it. Every time you win one of these small battles, you're building something. You're not just accomplishing a task. You're becoming a person who can be counted on, who follows through, who does what needs to be done regardless of how they feel, and that person, that's who changes their life. That's who builds something significant. That's who the world can't touch, because their strength comes from within, not from circumstances. The tragedy is that most people never recognize that this war exists. They go through life wondering why things don't work out, why they can't seem to get ahead, why success seems to come easily to others but not to them. And the whole time, they're losing battles inside themselves that they don't even know they're fighting. They're surrendering territory to procrastination, to doubt, to excuses, to laziness, to distraction, and then they wonder why their external life reflects defeat. Let me tell you something. You cannot win externally what you haven't first won internally. You cannot build a successful business if you can't discipline yourself to do the daily work. You cannot build a healthy body if you can't discipline yourself to make healthy choices. You cannot build meaningful relationships if you can't discipline yourself to be reliable, honest, and present. Everything external is a reflection of something internal. Your bank account is a reflection of your financial discipline. Your relationships are a reflection of your emotional discipline. Your health is a reflection of your physical discipline. Your business is a reflection of your professional discipline. Show me your life, and I'll show you who's been winning the war inside you. Now, let me tell you what changed my life, and I mean really changed it from the bottom up. It was understanding this simple truth. Small daily disciplines create the strength to win internally. You know, most people want the big transformation, the dramatic change, the overnight success. But that's not how life works. Life works on the principle of accumulation. Little things done consistently over time create major results. And the same is true for building your internal strength. You don't wake up one day as a disciplined person. You become one through practice, through repetition, through winning small battles day after day until discipline becomes part of who you are. Think about it like building muscle. You don't walk into a gym and lift 500 pounds on your first day. You'd hurt yourself. You start with what you can handle, and you add a little more, and a little more, and over time your muscles adapt. They grow stronger. They can handle more weight. Your internal strength works exactly the same way. Every time you make a choice that aligns with your goals instead of your feelings, you're building strength. Every time you do what you said you'd do, even when you don't feel like it, you're building strength. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you're building strength. And just like physical muscles, that internal strength compounds over time. I'll never forget watching a man named Earl transform his entire life through this principle. When I first met Earl, he was about 60 pounds overweight, smoking 2 packs a day, drowning in debt, and miserable in every area of his life. And he said to me, "Jim, I need to change everything. How do I do it?" And I told him, "You don't change everything at once. You can't. That's too overwhelming. You'll quit in a week. Instead, pick one battle to win, just one. Win that battle every day for 30 days, and then we'll talk about the next one." So Earl decided his first battle would be the morning. He was going to get up at 6 o'clock every morning, no matter what. Now, that doesn't sound like much, does it? Getting up at a certain time? But for Earl, who had been sleeping until 8 or 9, hitting the snooze button 5 times, starting his day already behind and feeling like a failure, this was huge. The first week was brutal. Every morning was a war. But he won. He got up day after day after day, and something started to happen. Winning that first battle of the day gave him momentum. He felt like a winner before breakfast. And when you feel like a winner, you make different choices. After 30 days, Earl came back to me, and he was different. Not dramatically different on the outside, but something had shifted inside. He had proven to himself that he could keep a commitment. He had won a battle against himself 30 days in a row. So we added another discipline, 30 minutes of reading every day. Books that would help him grow, that would educate him, that would change the way he thought. Again, doesn't sound like much. But for Earl, who hadn't read a book in 10 years, this was another battle to win. And here's what happened. Those 2 simple disciplines started a chain reaction. Getting up early and reading meant he was feeding his mind good stuff first thing in the morning. That changed his thinking. His changed thinking led to changed actions. He started making better choices about what he ate. He started taking walks. He started looking for ways to earn extra money. Within a year, Earl had lost the weight, quit smoking, paid off half his debt, and was working on starting a small business. All because he started with one small battle and built from there. See, most people try to change everything at once. New Year's Day rolls around and they've got 15 resolutions. They're going to work out, eat healthy, read more, save money, start a business, fix their relationships, learn a language, and meditate. By January 15th, they've quit all of it. Why? Because they tried to fight the entire war in one day. You can't do that. You've got to pick your battles strategically and win them one at a time. Let me tell you about the specific daily battles that matter most. The first one is that morning alarm. I'm serious about this. How you start your day determines how you live your day. If the first thing you do is hit the snooze button, you've just told yourself that comfort is more important than commitment. You've lost the first battle before your day even began. But if you get up when you said you would, Even if you're tired, even if you want 5 more minutes, you've won. You've proven to yourself that you can do hard things. You've chosen discipline over comfort. And that victory creates momentum for every other choice you make that day. The second battle is the choice between education and entertainment. Every single day, you've got hours where you choose what to put in your mind. Are you going to spend that time on social media, watching shows that don't improve your life, consuming content that doesn't make you better? Or are you going to read books, listen to material that challenges you to grow, study people who have accomplished what you want to accomplish? Here's what I learned. You will become what you study. If you study success, you'll become successful. If you study failure and mediocrity, well, that's what you'll become too. This daily choice of what you feed your mind, it's one of the most important battles you'll fight. Then there's the battle of keeping promises to yourself when nobody's watching. This is where character is built. See, it's easy to do the right thing when people are looking, when there's accountability, when there's someone checking on you. But what about when nobody knows? What about when you could skip the workout and nobody would know? What about when you could cut corners and nobody would see? What about when you could break that commitment to yourself and nobody would hold you accountable? Those are the moments that define who you're becoming, because you know, and every time you keep a promise to yourself in private, you're building trust with yourself. You're becoming someone you can count on. Let me give you another example. The discipline of writing down your goals and reviewing them daily. Sounds simple, right? But most people don't do it. They've got these vague wishes and hopes floating around in their head, but they never take the time to clarify them, write them down, and look at them every single day. And without that clarity, without that daily reminder of what you're working toward, it's easy to drift, it's easy to get distracted. It's easy to spend your days on things that don't matter. But when you write your goals down and review them every morning, you're telling your subconscious mind, this is what matters. This is what we're working toward. These are the battles worth fighting. Or take the discipline of saving money. Even if it's just a small amount, even if it's just 10% of whatever you earn, the discipline of paying yourself first and building your financial foundation, this creates internal strength. Why? Because you're telling yourself that your future matters more than immediate gratification. You're choosing long-term gain over short-term pleasure. And every time you make that choice, you're winning a battle against the part of you that wants everything now, that doesn't want to wait, that doesn't want to sacrifice. Here's the philosophy behind all of this, and it's something that took me years to understand. You don't need to have willpower, you need to become a disciplined person. There's a big difference. Willpower is like a muscle that gets tired. You can use it for a while, but eventually it runs out and you're right back where you started. But becoming a disciplined person, that's different. That's about identity. That's about who you are at your core. And you become a disciplined person the same way you become anything else. Through practice, through repetition, through winning enough battles that discipline becomes your default, not something you have to force. Think about learning to drive a car. At first, it takes all your concentration. You've got to think about the gas, the brake, the steering, the mirrors, the other cars. It's exhausting. But you do it enough times, and what happens? It becomes automatic. You don't have to think about it anymore. You just do it. Discipline works the same way. At first, every choice takes effort. Getting up is hard. Working out is hard. Saving money is hard. Reading instead of watching TV is hard. But you do it enough times, and it becomes who you are. It becomes automatic. It becomes easier to do the discipline thing than to not do it. And here's what most people miss. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you're not just accomplishing that specific thing. You're building evidence that you're someone who follows through. You're creating a track record with yourself. And that track record becomes the foundation of your self-confidence, your self-respect, your belief in your ability to change your life. On the flip side, every time you break a promise to yourself, you're building evidence that you can't be trusted, that you don't follow through, that you're not serious about change. And that evidence accumulates. It becomes the lens through which you see yourself. Let me tell you something important. This isn't about perfection. You're going to lose some battles. You're going to have days where you hit the snooze button, where you skip the workout, where you eat the junk food, where you waste time on nonsense. That's part of being human. The question is, Do you win more battles than you lose? Are you getting stronger over time or weaker? Are you becoming more disciplined or less? Because the trend is what matters. If you win 70% of these daily battles, you're going to transform your life. You just need to be consistent enough that the disciplines compound, that they build on each other, that they create momentum. And when you start winning these battles consistently, something remarkable happens. The external world starts to reflect your internal victory. Your bank account grows because you've developed financial discipline. Your body transforms because you've developed physical discipline. Your relationships improve because you've developed emotional discipline. Your business succeeds because you've developed professional discipline. Everything external is downstream from what's happening internally. Change the inside, and the outside has to change. That's law. That's how life works. Now let me talk to you about something that most people completely overlook, and it's costing them the war. Your mind is the battlefield, and you've got to guard what enters it like your life depends on it, because it does. See, we live in a world where information is coming at us from every direction, all day long. News, social media, opinions, negativity, gossip, fear, outrage. And most people, they just let it all in. They're completely casual about what they expose their minds to. They wouldn't eat garbage for breakfast, but they'll feed their minds garbage all day long and wonder why they feel defeated, anxious, and stuck. Here's what I learned after making the mistake myself. You become the average of what you expose yourself to. If you spend your time watching news that focuses on everything wrong with the world, you're going to think the world is falling apart. If you spend your time with people who complain, make excuses, and blame others for their problems, you're going to start thinking and talking the same way. If you fill your mind with entertainment that doesn't challenge you or improve you, your thinking is going to be shallow, and your life is going to reflect that. The influences you allow into your mind are either helping you win the internal war or helping you lose it. There's no neutral ground here. I remember when I made the decision to completely change my mental diet. I stopped watching the news. Just stopped. People thought I was crazy. They'd say, "Jim, you need to stay informed." And I'd say, "Informed about what? All the terrible things happening that I can't control? How does that help me?" I started being ruthless about what I read, what I watched, who I listened to. If it wasn't making me better, stronger, wiser, or more capable, it didn't get access to my mind. And let me tell you, that decision changed everything. My thinking cleared up, my energy improved, my focus sharpened. It was like I'd been carrying around a heavy weight I didn't even know was there, and suddenly it was gone. Then there's the matter of association. The people you spend time with are influencing you whether you realize it or not. If you hang around 5 people who are broke, you'll be the 6th. If you hang around 5 people who are negative, you'll start seeing the world through their lens. If you hang around 5 people who have given up on their dreams, you'll start giving up on yours too. Not because you're weak, but because that's how influence works. It's subtle, it's powerful, and most people don't protect themselves from it. Now I know what you're thinking. "Jim, I can't just cut people out of my life. I've got family, co-workers, obligations." I understand that. You can't always change your environment immediately, but you can limit your exposure. You can be intentional about not letting negative conversations pull you in. You can choose not to participate in the gossip, the complaining, the excuse-making, and you can make sure that you're also exposing yourself to positive influences. Read books by people who inspire you. Listen to educational material during your commute. Find mentors, even if they're mentors through books and recordings. Surround yourself with voices that challenge you to be better. Here's the truth. When you control your mental environment, when you're selective about what gets into your mind and who gets your time and attention, the external world starts losing its power over you. The negativity can't stick. The doubt can't take root. The fear can't paralyze you. Because you've built something stronger inside, and that strength comes from guarding your mind like the valuable territory it is. Let me tell you what life looks like when you've won enough of these internal battles that you've essentially won the war. It's not that life gets easier. Problems still come. Challenges still arise. The economy still goes up and down. People still disappoint you. Plans still fall through. But here's the difference. None of it can shake you. Not really. Not at your core. Because your strength doesn't come from your circumstances anymore. It comes from who you've become through all those daily battles you've won. I faced a moment like this years ago. I had built a business, things were going well, and then everything fell apart. Bad decisions, bad timing, bad luck, take your pick. I lost a significant amount of money. I had to start over in ways I never thought I'd have to at that stage of my life. And you know what? 20 years earlier, that would have destroyed me. It would have confirmed every doubt I ever had about myself. It would have been the excuse I needed to give up, to say the world was against me, to blame circumstances and quit trying. But this time was different. Not because the circumstances were better. They weren't. They were worse. But I was different. I had spent years winning those daily battles. I had developed disciplines that had become part of who I was. I had built internal strength through thousands of small victories. And when the external storm came, I had something inside that couldn't be touched by it. I knew I could rebuild, not because I was confident in the economy or the market or my luck, but because I was confident in myself. I knew I would get up every day and do what needed to be done. I knew I wouldn't make excuses. I knew I wouldn't quit. The external loss couldn't take away who I had become internally. That's what winning the internal war gives you. It gives you a foundation that nothing external can shake. See, most people build their lives on sand. Their confidence comes from their bank account, so when they lose money, they lose confidence. Their sense of self comes from their position or title, so when they lose the job, they lose themselves. Their happiness comes from their circumstances being just right, so when circumstances change, their happiness disappears. They're completely at the mercy of the external world because they never built anything solid internally. But when you win the war inside, everything changes. Your sense of self comes from who you've disciplined yourself to become, not from what you have. And here's the beautiful thing about that. People can take your money, they can take your job, they can take your reputation, they can take your possessions, but they cannot take the disciplines you've developed. They cannot take the person you've become through all those battles you've won. They cannot take your ability to start over and build again. That's yours. That's internal. That's untouchable. And this changes everything about how you operate in the world. You make better decisions because you're not desperate. When you're not desperate, you don't chase bad opportunities. You don't compromise your values for a quick gain. You don't settle for less than you're worth. You can be patient. You can be strategic. You can wait for the right opportunity instead of grabbing at anything that comes along. That patience and wisdom, it comes from internal strength. Your relationships transform too. When you're not needy, when you're not looking for someone else to complete you or fix you or validate you, you attract different people. You build relationships based on mutual respect and genuine connection, not based on need and desperation. And those relationships are stronger, healthier, more fulfilling, because you're bringing a whole person to the table, not a broken person looking for someone else to put the pieces together. Here's the paradox I've observed over the years. When you stop needing external validation, you often receive more of it. When you stop being desperate for success, you often achieve more of it. When you stop looking for happiness in circumstances, you often find yourself happier. Why? Because you're operating from a place of strength instead of weakness. You're making choices based on what's right instead of what you need right now. You're playing the long game instead of constantly reacting to short-term pressures. But even more important than any external result, there's a freedom that comes with this internal victory that you can't put a price on. It's the freedom of knowing that you can lose everything external and still be okay. Not okay in some superficial positive thinking way, but genuinely okay because you know you can build it again. You've proven to yourself, through thousands of daily battles won, that you've got what it takes. That knowledge, that certainty, it changes how you walk through the world. You stop being afraid of failure because you know that failure is just information, just feedback, just part of the process. You stop being intimidated by challenges because you've faced the hardest challenge there is, the battle with yourself, and you've won. You stop worrying about what other people think because your opinion of yourself, built on real evidence of discipline and follow-through, matters more than anyone else's opinion ever could.